Genesis chapter 28. You guys ready? Continuing our series from last week. Turn down the noise. Who am I? Part 2. Jacob's dream. I kind of did a bait and switch on you last week where you thought you're going to hear about Jacob's dream, where I end up laying right here with the rock as my pillow. But I left you hanging. I said, we'll stop there and we'll start next week again. But the big idea is humanity has always had the struggle to find God. And we run everywhere outside of the realm of God, the noise of this world, to find who we are, to define who we are. And we consult self-help books or online speakers or podcasts or reading up on philosophies and even living a rebellious life in search of who we are and who is God. We look at Adam and Eve in the garden, and you notice that there was this one tree in the middle of the garden, and God did that on purpose because He says, you can have everything else, but at the center of your life has to be me. And Adam and Eve says, let me dabble into being the part of center of my life instead. So they went and ate the fruit, and they pushed God out of the garden and say, I want to be the driver, the captain seat of my life, and not God. So in effort of answering the question, who we are, who am I, who is God, how do I exist, why do I exist, we drowned out the noise of God. And Nietzsche came up with this idea, and he says, we killed God in the process, figuratively. We killed God in the process of finding ourselves. We're nothing but a mirror, absorbing what the world is telling us and reflecting back. So essentially, we're just a tool that the noise of this world uses to absorb information and reflect back. And we ended last week with God clearly stated in Ephesians chapter 2 that we are Christ's workmanship, we're God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good work. We have meaning, we have purpose. We have a God that is in the center of our lives. And at the end of the sermon, where we read Jacob, and he lays right here in the rock on his head, and he looks up to the heavens. So let's pick up Genesis chapter 28, verse 10. Genesis chapter 28, starting verse 10. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reaches a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun has set. Taking some of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. Verse 12. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to the heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Verse 13, there above it stood the Lord, and the Lord said, I am the Lord, the God of your father, the Abraham, the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. All people on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. And when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Jacob got to this dream here because he was wanting to be someone else, so he pretended to be his brother named Esau, who was his twin brother. Esau was a little bit manlier than Jacob, but when his father got old, Jacob pretended to be his brother and stole the blessing. Okay, you can read up on that if you want. Genesis chapter 26 and 27. So he stole his brother's blessing, and his brother wanted to kill him. So he ran. He ran to this place, and he lays down, and he had a dream. The dream is that there's a stair, a ladder to heaven, and on top of the ladder was God, and that the angels were coming and going from the ladder, and he was laying there, and he woke up and he said something that that bothers me for a little bit too. He says, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. This is our basic human problem. We want to know who we are. We want to know the meaning of life, our purpose in this world, whether or not we are loved or even worthy to be loved. If we're valued or even noticed at all in the realm of things, or in the crowded people, do we even exist, or whether we belong? And we try to answer these questions without considering or consulting God. We listen to the noise of this world on this journey to discover ourselves and the meaning of life, but actually the journey is God. So Jacob woke up and he says, surely God is in this place, and I wasn't even aware of it. We listen to the noise of this world that drowns out the voice of God in our lives, and we wonder, where are you? And God says, I'm screaming from the top of the ladder, I love you. So to truly find ourselves, we first have to recognize God is here. To truly find ourselves of who we are, we have to recognize first that God is here. Verse 12, he had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth. It is top reaching to the heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he says, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. I will give you your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south. I am with you. I will watch over you. Wherever you go, I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. There's this complex idea behind this verse. The psychology and the philosophy behind these verses explains our relationship with God, incomparable to who we are and why we exist, or answering the question, who am I? In the hustle and bustle and the noise of this world, when I read this, I realize something. I'm not in tune with the spiritual world enough. I'm not in tune with the unseen world enough. But I also realize in this big universe that God is above and I'm below, but yet there's this God who is mindful of who I am, this little me, where it gets up and I'd say hi to my kids and my wife, and sometimes she kisses me back, but that's okay. I forgive her for that, right? Good morning, Liz, kiss you. She doesn't kiss me back, but that's okay. And then I get dressed and I leave for work. Right? I'm just going through the routines of my day, but then I'm not even aware that there's this big God who looks down on me and says, no, I am with you. I love you. I am for you. And I have you in my arms. And there's this God, this big universe, who is mindful of little me. So Jacob lay down in his dream, and there's this ladder. Come on, Mike Irvin. You know this is going to happen. Mike, come up. While Mike is walk, wouldn't you lay down and put your head on the rock for me real quick? Yes, please. Are you serious? Mike's like, yes, please. You want me to tuck you in or no? Yes. All right, so be careful. There you go. All right, no, here, let me do this for you, okay? Don't hurt yourself. Are we insured for this, elders? We're insured for this, right? So here's this deal, right? So Jacob ran away, and he was laying down, and the heavens is his canvas. Who did that? There's a balloon. Who did that? There's a balloon up there. That was not a part of the, I just noticed that. All right, so Jacob was laying down, and the heavens is his canvas. So he's looking up into the heavens. His mind is racing. I'm running away from my brother. I just stole his blessings. He's going to kill me. I have no home, no land. I don't even know what's going to come about my life. The ceiling fan is turning. Your room became dark. You think no one cares. I'm unloved. Am I noticed? So he's laying there. The heavens was this canvas. And he had a dream. In that dream, there's this ladder. Come on, Mike Vitro. So, Mike, I want you to climb on top of the ladder. I'll hold you. All right, stand on this side so the audience can see you. All right. So hear me out here, guys. Think of the psychology and the spiritual world, what's happening here, that the writer wants us to understand. Okay? So he's looking at the heavens, wondering, does God still love me? I just did something that's really wrong. I stole my brother's blessing. I pretended to be someone else. I'm very unhappy with myself. I'm running from my life. And then all of a sudden, heaven opens up, and there's this ladder, and God is on top of it. And angels descending and ascending from heaven. And this is not the view of like angels just walking up and down. They're flying. The language is that they're coming and going. Essentially, they are messengers of God. They're doing God's work. So here's the psychology behind this, the philosophy behind this, right? So God, essentially, in his dream, exists outside of space and time. That there's this spiritual world that we're not seeing. There's this connection. Since the fall of the garden with Adam and Eve, man has always trying to find his way back to God. And all of a sudden, heavens open up in his dream, and there's this ladder that connects us back to God, something God provided. And the angels were his workmen, his workers who in and out involved in his creation. That's essentially what Jacob was seeing, that this ladder, it's his way back to God. And God existed outside of time and space. There's a spiritual world that we're not even aware of. And then he woke up. Good job. And he says, surely the Lord is in this place, and I wasn't aware of it.
Surely the Lord is in this place.
Not me, the Lord. Don't look at me. Surely
the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it.
Has the noise of this world drowned out the voice of God? That in the process of finding ourselves, we're looking at the existence of creation, and we forgot the creator behind it, who is still very involved in your life. And God is shouting from the top of the ladder to Jacob in his dream, I am with you. I've always been with you. I will always be with you. I have not forsaken you. You are loved. You belong. And there's this ladder, and that's your way back to me. Amen? Give it up for the volunteers. You can go ahead and sit down. And that's pretty much Jacob's dream. Has the noise of this world drowned out the voice of God? That in search for meaning in life, we killed God in the process. In our pursuit of meaning, we read deeply on the subject of existentialism, where the idea of studying the behavior of a human being, and we listen to these philosophers, and we kill God. Like Nietzsche says, God is dead, or at least in our mind. We listen to our own rebellious thoughts become louder and louder, becomes the louder voice in our lives. We create scenarios and intelligent sounding explanations to justify our own rebellion. We attempt to explain ourselves away into why, how, and what is our purpose in life. And some are very genuine, by the way. Some of you are on this journey, and it's genuine. We think we're now woke from this false reality, that we have found enlightenment. And we create our own reality to live in. But in actuality, we just have deceived ourselves. Liz and I were laying in our bed. Finding ourselves scrolling through mindless Instagram and Facebook, not talking to each other, not because we're mad at each other or anything. We just wanted to scroll through whatever we scrolled through. So we decided to delete Facebook and Instagram off of our phones. So you notice I haven't been posting as much. I only do it when I'm at the office or keeping up with some of you. And in a recent announcement, Zuckerberg announced that Facebook is going to change its name to Meta. The word meta means beyond, to live beyond this world. That he wants us to create our own world, our own fake world that we can live in. This is what he said, and it scares me. The metaverse will feel like a hybrid of today's online social experiences. Sometimes expand into 3D or projected into the physical world. It will let you share immersive experiences with others even when you can't be together. And do things together you couldn't do in the physical world. It's the next evolution in a long line of social technologies. And it's ushering in a new chapter of our company. As if this world is not lonely enough. As if like marriages aren't broken enough because of online attractions. The things that I couldn't do with a woman in the physical world or a man in the physical world, now I can enter into this world and I can live in that. Or the things I couldn't do to a child or whatever that it is in my world now, I can now create a virtual world and I can enter into that world and do the things that I wish I could have done in the real world. Essentially, what he's saying, there is a false reality that all of us wants to live in. And then he wants us to live in that longer, much longer than we do now. He essentially saying that children, it's not on screen enough, and we need to create another world for children to live in, or for husbands to live in, for wives to live in, for people to live in, so that they don't have to deal with real problems. He wants us to stay in it, to exist there. Now, I know some of you do have those platforms, and I want to encourage you to use it for good. I do. I have it. I have all of it. I have Twitter, I have Facebook, I have Instagram. Never got into TikTok because I think that's just weird. I don't know what that is. I think that's for like 12-year-olds or something. I don't know. But here's a study on self-awareness out of the School of Business at Harvard. Tasha Eurich, who's doing research on self-awareness, and this is what she found, that people overestimate their self-awareness to a large extent. In a study of thousands of participants from around the world, 95% of her respondents claimed to be self-aware. But after testing them against the dedicated self-awareness assessment tool, I don't know what that is, Eurich and her team found that only 15% of people in the study could be qualified as self-aware. So she said this quote, I can't remember, I put it on the screen now, but he says, on a good day, that means that 80% of us are lying to ourselves about whether we're lying to ourselves or not. And she's further found that the people who are most self-aware are the people who often take out their earphones, leave the phones in their car, and they went for a walk in the woods. Amazing. People who are most self-aware are the people that turns off their headphones, put the phones out, and went for a walk by themselves to be in nature with the Creator. This study makes sense. I mean, really think about it. How many of you guys think you're good drivers? You're lying. How many of you guys think Asians are good drivers? Oh, thank you. I think we're the worst. So all the Asians like raise their hands like, yeah, we are. No, I think we're the worst. We're probably lying to ourselves. Hey, listen, I know I'm self-aware, okay? I am. Look, I'm trying the No Shave November. I know this looks terrible, okay? I mean, seriously, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I look like a stinking cat. Like my hair doesn't grow inward, it grows out like this. Like my mustache are like poking you in the front row. They're sticking out, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? But, I know it's ugly, I know. But I want to try it for the month of November for the no shade. I'm going to look at one of those old ancient Chinese guy with, next week I'm going to go like this. Self-aware, I know. I know I'm ugly with this, But it's funny when we do this, but it's more serious on a spiritual sense that we forget that God is here in this place and we're not even aware of it. How do you in search for meaning and God is right here and we're not even aware of it? And God shouts from the top of the ladder and says, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying on. The ground you walk in, it's yours. I created for you. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you. Wherever you go, I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Man, those are some comforting words. The same way I lay there at night and I say, why isn't our church growing? Are my sermons not good enough? Are my essays still that much out of place? I'm like, God. But then I remember the whispers of God says, I am with you. I'm with you. I will bless you and your offspring. I will watch over you. I will go wherever you go. So to solve this disconnect between man and God, between heaven and earth, to bridge the gap between God and the struggling man, the reality and spirituality, to solve the problem of humanity's search for meaning, Jesus says, John chapter 1, verse 51. And he says, truly I say to you, you see heaven opening and the angel of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. It's the same language that Jacob saw on the ladder that God's trying to solve it with Jacob. Say, Jacob, I'm with you. There's angels descending and ascending with his creation that I'm involved. So Jesus, now God sent himself, his son. Jesus is the ladder. Jesus is the connection with our struggle of humanity since the fall, since creation, that now he is the ladder. If we want to get to God, Jesus is the ladder. He is the solution, the answer to every exchange between heaven and earth. He is the answer to the problems in our lives since the fall in the Garden of Eden. It's by him and in him and through him. In John chapter 14, verse 5, Thomas says to him, Lord, I don't know where you're going. So how can we know the way? You and I ask the same question. God, who am I? Where am I going? How do I know how to get there? How do I get to God? How do I get back to where the garden was? Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. It can't be any more obvious. How do we explain the existence of humanity without believing in the Word of God? We can't. Because if we don't believe in the Word of God, trying to explain to ourselves what we have done spiritually, we killed God in the process. And we wake up and we say, surely He's in this place, and I wasn't aware of it. We got it all backwards. We give ourselves way too much credit and praise than we deserve. And we give God way less credit and praise than He deserves for the existing of our lives. In Search for Meaning, Jimmy Page, the lead guitarist for the band Led Zeppelin. Some of you guys might have heard of it. He wrote a song called Stairway to Heaven. Mainstream media never gave credit to where that song came from. Some even said he stole it. Some said they borrowed from someone else. And for years, people have wanting an explanation. What does that song mean? Stairway to Heaven by the band Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page's dad was a pastor. His grandpa was also a pastor. He grew up in the church. But towards the end of the 60s and into the 70s, man was trying to find this search for meaning. Some of you guys might have grown up in that time period, and you remember why we here. And you have Woodstock, and you have people sitting in front of the White House. At the time, I guess you'd call it smoking the doobies, huh? And Jimmy Page wrote this song, Stairway to Heaven. And in it, these are the words. There's a lady, and I'll summarize it. There's a lady who's sure all that glitter, it's gold. And she's buying a stairway to heaven. And these are the words from Jimmy Page, who his dad's a pastor, and his grandfather was a pastor, and he grew up in the church. So he's saying we have misinterpreted, we think we're buying our way to heaven with this all this glitter and this gold, this shiny things in this world. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west and my spirit is crying for leaving. Remember, there's a mass exodus, gold mining to the west. And we thought that was the answer to humanity. And he says, we stare to the west, but he says, my heart cries to leave. Yes, there's two paths you can go, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're in. Your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on this whispering wind? He wants us to understand the voice of God. It's in the quietness of the wind calling her in this song. Come back. You've gone too far. And as we wind down the road, our shadows taller than our soul. He's saying we have made ourselves standing in front of the mirror bigger than life itself, bigger than God himself, bigger than our soul. And he says to be the rock and not to roll. To be the rock. I have forgotten God as the center of my life in the pursuit of meaning. He says to be the rock, but not the roll. Oh yeah, remember that line? And she's buying a stairway to heaven. The song captured this pursuit, our meaning of purpose, pursuing meaning and purpose for our lives, that we think we can buy ourselves to God, but we can't. Because his voice for us is in the wind where Elijah stands. If you grew up in the church, you know, God is in the quiet whisper. This song haunted their lead singer, Robert Plant. After one of the band members died in the 80s, the band broke up. They couldn't do it anymore. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever the time frame was, they wanted to get back together. So they asked Robert Plant, will you join back the band and go on tour like we did in the old days? You're a lead singer. And this is what Robert Plant said, the lead singer. I refuse to unite with this band. No amount of money it's worth having to sing Stairway to Heaven like you mean it, night after night after night. His conviction for God, that the pursuit of rock and roll, he couldn't bear himself to sing that song night after night after night. In 2019, Robert Plant, the lead singer of Led Zeppelin, joined a band in England called Saving Grace. It's a Christian band. They're getting ready to go on tour in America in 2022. I guess he found his stairway to heaven. The father of evolution, Charles Darwin, hated the fact that the atheist community used his literature and said that he didn't believe in God. He never allowed it. Matter of fact, some of the things that Charles Darwin said, he deleted it from his memoir because it was too embarrassing. He was hurting. Of course, he had a lot of medical issues in his life, and Charles Darwin was described as someone who's a little different. He tends to always think, consider a genius, or to think beyond the self or the existence of man. So, and then he couldn't come to term with the fact that there's a God that would allow his close friends or some of his family members to go to hell. So Charles Darwin came up with this idea that there has to be, we got to evolve from somewhere. But he never denied the existence of God. History shows that actually he was very passionate about Christianity. There's a lady by the name of Lady Law who went and visited him on his deathbed. And she found him reading the book of Hebrews from the Bible. As I do my research for the sermon series, I discovered something fascinating. Some of the deepest thinkers, some of the smartest people in the world who tries to find the meaning of life and humanity, some of the strongest arguments for science or whatever that we tries to explain our existence, it comes to term with one thing and one thing only. There has to be a creator. Whether you believe in God or not, they come to term that there has to be a creator. Of course, the evolutionary community would never admit that Charles Darwin was reading the Bible on his deathbed. Of course, you want to erase that out of all the memoir or his own personal history. But in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus says, ask, and it'll be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. We can go through life in search for our stairway to heaven. by buying the glitters and the glamours of this world, or we can look on the cross that is the stairway, that is the ladder that Jacob was dreaming about, the explanations and the philosophy of this existence of the spiritual world and the physical world, where God is providing a way since the fall of man to solve all of our problems by providing us a ladder. And that ladder is Jesus Christ, because he says, you will see angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. It's the same language that Jacob used when the writer wrote it and said, there's this ladder. And that ladder came to us through Jesus Christ. Amen? And God shouted from the rooftop, from the top of the ladder, and says, I love you. I am with you. I will bless you. You are my children. Stop looking everywhere else and realize he is, in fact, in this place.